night is over, he can get in touch with us. But in the meantime, we didn't want to lose connection with you guys and keep the show going. So we are going trying to figure out now what topics we would like to bring to the table.
Right. I'm going to repeat that just because we were not live, so they only caught the last bit.
Oh,
We had we had two guests um, for tonight. However, because of unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to get them on at this time. So we'll definitely reschedule because we would definitely want to hear from them. One was Giancarlo Portillo, which is a young man from Mexico. He's a libertarian, and he's also a cultural warrior, you could say. You know, he has a channel where he interviews different types of persons and has debates. And then the other guest was actually a young Cuban Canadian that wrote an essay for her a school assignment, and she spoke about or wrote about what Cubans go through, and she wanted to share it with us. She did it in Canada for an English speaking and a French speaking audience, so she wanted to share that with us as well. So in lieu of these acontecimientos, of these unforeseen events, what I have right now is I have 3 articles that I want to share with you.
okay.
And I want to hear your thoughts, basically.
Okay.
The first one is regarding the regulations with FinCimex. We spoke briefly about this before in another live stream, and that is regarding the Western Union offices in Cuba. So let me share that with the folks on the stream, and yes, let me go ahead and put this here so that I can see what's going on, and I will do this. So a federal judge has ruled that a human trafficking lawsuit, I am reading the wrong one, excuse me.
Yeah.
There we go. Western Union is suspending U.S. money transfers to Cuba due to new embargo regulations put in place by the Trump administration. That is that's a lie. Because Western Union doesn't have to do that because of the new embargo regulations. If you keep reading, FinCimex, which is the Cuban military company that controls the remittances, said that 407 Western Union offices on the island will close on November 23rd. Okay. But the regulations say that Western Union is not allowed to interact with companies controlled by the Cuban military when processing money sent from the States. Now, if you're like a normal person in the world, you know that when you receive a remittance via Western Union, or when you go to send a remittance, or when you go to a cashier's check, you don't have to go through a government to do that, right? You go to Walmart, or you go to Publix, or you go to a Western Union office, and you send your money, or you receive your money. No government involvement. But in Cuba, these offices have to go through the government, deposit the dollars in the government account, and then the government gives those offices funny money, monopoly Cuban government money, and then your relatives in Cuba use that funny money, those Disney dollars in Cuba.
Disney dollars.
Right?
I like the word that Disney dollars.
It is. It's right.
Yeah.
But it is strange how the media will say, "Oh, it is because of the U.S. embargo," and then their source. Let me see over here. What was the source? It says the source is FinCimex, the Cuban military company that controls remittances to Cuba. So that's their source. And the source says, oh, it's because of Trump regulations. No, it's not because of Trump regulations. All they have to do, if FinCimex wants to, wanted the Cuban people to get real money, they would just let the people go to the 407 Western Union offices on the island. Like, why are those offices closing? Why?
Right.
Okay. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that the measure seeks to cut the Cuban military out of the business and cut off funds that flow to Cuban security agencies accused of human rights violations in Cuba and Venezuela. Western Union, which handles most of the money sent to the island from the U.S., is looking for alternatives to maintain the service. For now, customers can continue to send money to Cuba because the administration gave U.S. companies 30 days to negotiate a solution with the Cuban government. FinCimex, that's the Cuban military company, said in Facebook, okay, it wouldn't accept the U.S. imposing a new payment network over the system in place for 20 years. What new payment network? The payment network is already there. It's at 407 Western Union offices. People have been going to the Western Union offices. It's just that the money goes direct. They want the money now to go directly to the Cuban people, not through the government. The company said the U.S. knew that new regulations would make it difficult for money to be sent to Cuba. No, we are removing the evil middleman. That's what we're doing. Yeah, quote the Cuban government. Those who designed the measures know very well that it would not be possible in 30 days to organize alternative solutions. Yeah, it wouldn't be possible for you to come up with another way to defraud, everyone. It is evident the intentionality of the U.S. government to disrupt remittances to Cuba, and of course they need to lie to the public as usual. And that is what the New York Post has decided to post. All right. Let's go to another one. This one was interesting because it's another. It's actually a community that we don't hear much about. Let me share this.
Yeah, that one was very interesting to me, actually.
Let's see if it's legible. I may want to go a little. Okay, I think I went too far. No? Okay, it's legible. So this is from the Jewish News Syndicate. Saul Berenthal, 75, let me see the headline. Right. Jew bands prosperous in America while brethren in Cuba hangs on the precipice. Okay. Saul Berenthal, 75, was born and raised in Cuba, but left for Miami in 1960 following the 1959 Castro Revolution. His parents were refugees, having fled the wars in Europe and settling in Havana after U.S. quotas were enacted. Berenthal was educated in a Cuban military school and later built successful businesses in the United States, achieving the proverbial American dream. Excuse me. According to his son Scott, Berenthal was one of the principals behind the Ogun Tractor Initiative. That's interesting. Iskra, I don't know if you remember this, but basically these were tractors.
Yeah, the tractors that they were going to start sending with the Obama administration to Cuba, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Very affordable tractors for your average farmer in Cuba. Because, by the way, in Cuba, they're farming with how do you call them? With buffalo, with cows. Like, yeah. I mean, they don't have motorized vehicles to till the land. Like, they're doing it by hand with cattle, like India in the 70s. They've been doing that since the 50s, by the way. I mean, we have more tractors in the 50s, so we're going backwards. So they were saying, okay, when Obama opened up, let's try to get these tractors in the hands of, farmers. And the Cuban government said, F you, no, we don't want people to prosper.
Yeah. God forbid.
What I find annoying is that as the initiative fell out of favor with the Cubans for political reasons.
Hmm.
Really, Scott?
Yeah.
Really? All right, but I get it. You know, he's trying to help out the Jewish people in Cuba, so he doesn't want to like rock any boats.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, we turn to other sectors to identify opportunities to help the people, including its Jews, prosper.
Mm-hmm.
Over here, you see him shaking hands with Obama.
Hmm.
Yeah. Berenthal owns and operates Cuba's first and only kosher boutique hotel with its
Oh,
mission of providing kosher food and a suitable environment for Jews visiting from abroad.
now you know why he.
Curiouser and curiouser, sir, many of
Mm-hmm.
whom bring aid to the small Jewish community that still remains in Cuba.
So,
Doubtful. Because we've had reports of that Jewish boy that I think he was wearing the yarmulke in school and he was bullied by the teachers and the students, right?
mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know why they were bullied. I don't know if we have any later on when people can join us.
Yeah.
They were bullied. Um, was it because he wanted to homeschool his kids with Jewish teachings, or because he was trying to observe a holiday? I'm not sure. But I think it was the homeschooling. Obviously, here it's normal to have a Jewish school. It's
Yeah.
normal to have even an Islamic school or a Catholic school. In Cuba, it is prohibited. But now I know that they are making money off of the Jewish people the tourists that visit Cuba. With travel being a major facet, and of course, in order to have this, you need to have connections with the government, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
With travel being a major facet of the local economy, explained the younger Berenthal, we are able to allow people to see and explore a country wrapped in mystery and contradiction. Exotic. And experience the wonders of a small but proud Jewish community. The first Jews who came to Cuba came with Columbus, explained Berenthal. In fact, the financiers of the voyage were marranos, Spanish and Portuguese Jews who had been jailed for refusing to convert to Catholicism. A larger scale immigration began during the Spanish-American War when Jewish soldiers fought in Cuba and later decided to establish themselves there. Following World War I and World War II, Jews who were unable to immigrate to America settled in Cuba and prospered there as middle to upper middle class merchants.
Mm-hmm.
Cubans in the United States. Cuban Jews worked largely as merchants in Havana, though following the Communist Revolution, they didn't have a way to make a living under the economic model. No. Most left for Miami, which Berenthal calls a big little Cuba. With the Jews, they're affectionately nicknamed Cubans. While they're not a unified ethnic minority group per se, as Jewish Cubans come from both Sephardi and Ashkenazi origins, Berenthal said that they consider themselves a minority within the United States, though he noted that the concept of a minority is different in Cuba, where everybody is considered equal and there are no distinctions. Interesting. No, there are very much distinctions in Cuba. You're with the party or you're not of the party. And if you look at the parliament, there are very little persons of color there.
Mm-hmm.
But, again, I see that they're leaning a certain way.
Right.
At least they're looking out for themselves.
Right.
Fine. Better than no one looking out for the Jewish people in Cuba, honestly. Jewish Cubans represent a prosperous community in the United States, as they were the well-educated merchants and elites of Cuba. Berenthal compared Cuban Americans who left to Jews who left Germany. There is still a lot of resentment and hate towards Cuba, as the government closed and repossessed their businesses and properties were lost. Fair enough, makes sense. But then he says, I understand it, but I don't want to share in the grief. So forgiving, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Said Berenthal, who set up an office for one of his businesses in Hamburg, Germany, despite the fact that his father's family were Holocaust victims. Wait a minute.
Mm.
So this is a very interesting fellow. I asked my father, and he said that if we are ever able to make up for what we lost, to do it legally and constructively, making money, prospering, and contributing to the economy, is something that is positive.
Mm.
When Obama opened up businesses, I said to my friends, What they took, they took. So if we have a chance to make up for it now, why not? The people who took our businesses are not alive anymore. Just their descendants. And I believe that Raul Castro is still alive, and many of his fellows that were, part of the revolution. Although a lot of those people are homeless now, or like living in shacks. But the military, the old timers, some of them are still hanging around. So that's fake news. That is non-factual. Literally, when Obama visited, Castro was still alive, and he took your businesses, bro. But you want to make money by opening a hotel in Cuba. God bless you. The bond that Berenthal has with Cuba is rare, he acknowledged, as most Jewish Cubans in America do not return home. Yeah, we are a disappearing group because of assimilation. At the same time, noted Berenthal, it is becoming increasingly common for the younger generation to travel back on a heritage trip. The Cuban Jewish community in the United States also retains some cultural customs from their native land, which Berenthal says can be witnessed through their culinary traditions. The non-Orthodox Jews celebrate Jewish holidays, he explained, with the exception of Passover, in the same way Cubans celebrate Christmas. They throw a big party and roast pork. Pork is kosher? All right. Today, the Jewish... These guys are everywhere, man. Today, the Jewish community in Cuba numbers just 800 to 1,200 people, according to Berenthal. Being Orthodox in Cuba is almost an impossibility. That was one of the reasons why the family opened the hotel, to give a flavor of difference and for the ability to provide kosher food and kosher ambiance for people who want to come and visit. Lovely. There are 3 synagogues, a very small Orthodox one, a Sephardic one, and the largest, an Ashkenazi one. And the Cuban government helps to reconstruct them, as well as a Jewish cemetery. Suspicious. That is because the church, like in China, and I'm talking about the Christian church, is controlled by the state in Cuba. There is a council of Santeria priests. Santeria is the Yoruba religion, mainly from Nigeria, that was brought over by the slaves and then syncretized with Catholicism. So you have the African deities and a parallel Catholic deity. Okay, so there's a Santeria council or a ministry of whatever, Afro-Cuban culture. In any case, it is also controlled by the government. The Catholic Church, for a long time, in order to stay open, they also acquiesced to the government. Now there's a couple of priests here and there speaking their mind.
Who are doing, yeah.
But the Catholic Church is not like protecting them that much. It's actually the parishioners and us outside that are making noise, trying to make them public so they don't disappear. So this is suspicious to me right now, because the Cuban government doesn't do anything out of the goodness of their heart. No government does, but especially the Cuban government does not. So, they cut a deal, is what I'm seeing, and they don't want to be seen as anti-Semitic. Fair enough. The current coronavirus pandemic and political climate, said Berenthal's son, are making for extraordinary difficult circumstances. And the people of Cuba, including the Jews of Cuba, are suffering. There we go again. The current coronavirus pandemic and political climate, aka Trump policies and embargo. And the people of Cuba are suffering. Fine. Over the years, explained a younger Berenthal, Jews have traveled to Cuba to see and experience what was once one of the largest Jewish communities in the region prior to the revolution. They have brought vast quantities of medicine, food supplies, and aid to the point where the pharmacy at the Patronato Synagogue has historically been better stocked than most state and even retail outlets. Sadly, the lack of travel and continued punitive U.S. economic policy has forced them to reduce their supplies to dangerously low levels. Oh, really? Because the U.S. economic policy, how? We don't prohibit donations. The Cuban government sells the donations that we send over at inflated prices, but you can send all the food and all the medicine that you want. The United States sells chicken to Cuba. I mean, this is known. So that's fake news. With many items no longer available, including medicine. These are unfortunately desperate times for the community, and its survival hangs on the precipice. As it's difficult to send aid to Cuba now because of the Cuban government, related Berenthal, we have to think of other ways to become less dependent on charity and more self-sufficient, perhaps by participating in business opportunities. The Cuban government doesn't allow business opportunities unless you know somebody. Berenthal hopes to return to Cuba in December and make a plan with the community and decide how to move forward. And he feels very optimistic about improving commercial ties between the United States and Cuba's private sector. I wonder why he feels optimistic now and he's going in December. Political issues will take time, he acknowledged, but having the will on both sides to become better neighbors will make it better. Right. All right, bro. We know how you voted. I understand. And that's fine. And at least I suppose he's looking out for his people. Just, F everybody else. In my opinion, this is not the opinion of Sabos Mas or of Iskra. Mm-hmm. All right. And then the last one, Iskra, is a new lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, it's not a new lawsuit. It's been going on for a while. It's just now we have some new information on it, right?
Actually, it got green lighted. It says, hold on, let me show it over here.
Now it's open, but it finally went through, right? Is that? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay. Oh, too big. There we go. Federal judge greenlights Cuban doctors' human trafficking lawsuit against health group. Now, obviously, we've mentioned before that Cuban doctors are modern slaves. And even the State Department had a news conference with several witnesses and doctors, and they told their stories working in Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, etc., and how they were required to do different things for very low pay. Well, right now, a federal judge has ruled that the human trafficking lawsuit against the Pan American Health Organization filed by Cuban doctors who worked in Brazil can continue. Now, the Pan American Health Organization was also the organization that neglected to mention that Cuba was, had an epidemic of Zika. The New York Times reported on this. This organization basically said, oh, no, we didn't get the data dump or whatever, and so we didn't report it. And then when Zika was first breaking out everywhere and Cuba remained a bastion of Zika-free nation, it turns out that this organization, which is the one that reports these things, hadn't input they had a glitch in the system, and they didn't report the figures.
I wonder if the same people that we're having a glitch over here now in our system.
I wouldn't be surprised, this crap.
Conveniency,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, Zika was widespread, like in Cuba, and they didn't report it. Okay, this same Pan American Health Organization.
Yeah. Well.
So, while the Cuban government carries out an intense propaganda campaign to defend its medical missions, the judge gave the green light to a lawsuit filed by several Cuban doctors who accused the Pan American Health Organization of benefiting from a forced labor scheme in Brazil. U.S. District of Columbia Judge James Bosberg denied PAHO's motion to dismiss the lawsuit this week. He ruled that the organization could not claim immunity and that U.S. courts have jurisdiction on the case because of the commercial nature of the group's role as an intermediary between the governments of Cuba and Brazil to bring Cuban specialists to that country. That's right. This organization received money, Brazilian money. They helped sell Cuban doctors to Brazil's corrupt politicians, left politicians, Lula and Dilma Rousseff. Dilma Rousseff, I think they're both in jail, Dilma and Lula, because of corruption, because of, what was the name of that company? Iskra,
I'm bad with names. I'm so sorry.
I believe they're a construction company. If anybody can tell me, guys, what is the
God,
name of the company in Brazil that is super corrupt?
yeah. Okay, well, let's move forward. Let's move on because I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll
let's
find.
move on. Let's
Or
move on.
I'm
It'll
sure.
come to me, guys.
Yes, I'm sure
I know
we'll
that
find.
everybody wants to get in already.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure we'll find it. I'm sure
and
you will
they
tell
couldn't
us.
claim they couldn't claim immunity because they were getting money out of it, basically.
Yes.
The lawsuit says that Pajo benefited from forced labor and trafficking of more than 10,000 doctors and health professionals in Brazil from 2013 to the present.
Right.
In particular, Pajo acted as a financial intermediary using Citibank account in Washington. What? The international organization supposedly transferred about 1.3 billion paid by Brazil to Cuba's government and pocketed 75 mil.
Wow.
See why all these international organizations, we gotta defund all these things, man.
Yeah.
The Cuban doctors said they only receive 1,000 out of the 10,000 paid monthly to Cuba by the Brazilian government for their services.
I,
Of
I
that amount, Pajo deposited $600 in frozen bank accounts in Cuba, with the promise that the doctors would get the money if they completed their official missions and returned to the island. So that's how the medical missions work. You don't get paid. They deposit the money that you're supposed to receive every month in a
mhm.
frozen bank account in Cuba. And then, of course, again, they pay you in funny money. They will not give you the dollars.
Funny, man.
So after your mission of 4 years or 8 years or whatever, you go back to Cuba and then they give you Disney dollars.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Allowing this case to move forward is a win for all Cuban doctors. And let's see. And it exposes Cuban doctors' treatment as forced labor and will allow the doctors to hold this organization accountable for its key financial role in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
The PAHO spokeswoman, Ashley Baldwin, said that the organization would not comment. Okay, makes sense. Issues under litigation. In the past, they have denied receiving compensation for its role as an intermediary in the Mais Médicos program, More Doctors program. Cuban doctors also claim that once in Brazil, Cuban government agents, some hired as PAHO advisors, withheld their passports. You know, like I think in some Arab countries they do this too to the.
Well, yeah, even here. I mean, so when they bring people illegally here, like the Russians, and they hold their passports so they can.
Oh,
Yeah,
like coyotes, like
exactly,
the cartels. Okay.
exactly.
Wow. And they control their movements and preventing them from reuniting with their family members in Brazil. Not even in Cuba, in Brazil. Wow, I didn't know that part. I knew that they wouldn't let you travel to Cuba or they wouldn't let your family from Cuba visit you in Brazil, but I didn't know that
Well,
they wouldn't let
basically,
you meet.
if you don't have any documentation, you're really a nobody. So you can't move around. You can't do anything. So that's how they can control you.
Oh, here we go. The company is Odebrecht. That's the corrupt
I knew you would
Brazilian
find.
company. New audience is the most informed. Uh,
That.
Cuban government regulations punish doctors who leave official missions, banning them from returning to Cuba for 8 years. So, right, you get exiled, even though you have family and kids and grandparents or parents, it doesn't matter. Mais Médicos was a popular program created by the government of then President Dilma Rousseff. It was Rousseff. I think Lula had some other corruption. To hire Cuban doctors to offer services in Brazil's remote areas. Cuba withdrew from the program after President Jair Bolsonaro demanded that the island's government pay the doctors' salaries in full. That is so fascistic of Jair Bolsonaro. I can't believe that he did that. The Trump administration has been a vocal critic of these medical missions. In its 2019 report, the State Department described them as an example of forced labor and kept Cuba on the blacklist of countries that do not do enough to fight human trafficking. The U.S. government also imposed visa restrictions on certain Cuban officials associated with those missions. Yes, this is why Florida is red. 2 representatives of the United Nations wrote that the Cuban government saying they considered that the working conditions reported by several doctors who took part in these government missions could amount to forced labor. But Cuba has denied and rejected the criticism of its medical services export program. Right. The fact that you have a medical services export program, bro, means something, claiming that the money it receives is reinvested in Cuban public health. It is not. We have shown you what the hospitals look like. The authorities, however, have not produced evidence showing how the money is used. Of course, it's in Swiss bank accounts. According to official data, the Medical Services Export Program was Cuba's leading source of foreign currency in 2018, amounting to more than $6 billion. Wow. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuba has offered its doctor services to nearly 30 countries, including Mexico. We're going to talk about that tonight. And they used the issue to coordinate an international campaign supporting Cuban medical cooperation. It's not cooperation. They're selling you doctors. There is not donations. It's not charity. With support from the Cuban government, a coalition of left-wing activists and Latin American and U.S. organizations, including the advocacy group Code Pink, launched a campaign in June this year to petition the Nobel Committee to award its Peace Prize to Cuban doctors treating CV-19 patients abroad. We talked about this when we talked about the United Kingdom and how people in their parliament are actually pushing this, pushed this petition. Alrighty, so that's it for the news tonight. Let's listen to you guys.
I hope, we have a lot of people commenting, and I hope you guys come in, because I have Jose says, Jose Angel is a Cuban doctor in Mexico. I hope he can join us in here tonight. And we have also a Jose, no, wait, there was somebody that said that he was in, oh, wait, I saw another comment about the Jews, somebody that worked with the Jews in Cuba. And I hope that everybody can join us inside. Please join us. Please come in and talk to us. Hello, Jose, how are you? We can't see you.
Are you?
Oh, you are.
Hey, Jose, welcome.
Jose. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Iska. Nice to see you again. How are you guys doing?
We are doing well. There was another comment here on somebody who had worked with, was that you also? Somebody that had worked with Israeli? You too. Okay, yeah. My goodness. You've got a lot of experience. Oh.
Hey, I've been around.
You have been around. Okay, wonderful. So let's talk about your experience with the Jews first, which was.
Here's the thing. As I told you before, guys, I was a tour guide for Gaviota for 4 years. Okay. So in my experience as a tour guide, I work with different groups from Mexicans, Argentinians, but mainly Europeans, Germans, French, British too. But I also work with two Israeli groups, two of them.
Okay.
So here's the thing. This is my short experience with these two groups. There are Jewish people living in Cuba. There was this tour. It's like a host. He's from Israel, and he lives in Cuba. He's married to a Cuban lady, and he works as an intermediate person between the groups from Israel and the Cuban tourist company. So he collects money in between these two. Since they cannot visit Cuba, like large groups, they cannot visit Cuba. They're not allowed to visit Cuba by themselves. So this guy, he serves as an intermediator between these two.
Yeah.
But he cannot do the tours by himself because he has to be accompanied by a tour guide, like a Cuban tour guide from the company.
Got it.
But here's the trick. So when you start working in the tour companies in Cuba, as a freshman, you get the worst groups. You know, to make the less money. That's almost in every job. And there was no guy who wanted to work with this tour leader. That's the name, tour leader, because he collected money from the groups and he gives you shit, basically. So here's the thing. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
When I work with him, we tour around Cuba. So he collects the money. He doesn't pay well the tour guide. So you're always there. So what I'm doing, so you do the tours, he translates into Hebrew. And then at the end of the tour, he collects the money, he gives you nothing. It's so sad. And then we visit some people like in Vinales, in some areas, some rural areas like countryside in Cuba. So this guy, he dropped all the buses down to the houses of the farmers. They went through the houses, kitchen, bathroom and everything, and they will give them like second-hand clothes.
Oh, wow.
I'll be so mad with this guy, so mad. I was like, hey guys, when I work with a group, if we stop by a farmer's house or something, we are gonna help them. If we're gonna erupt in their life, we're gonna help them, not give them second-hand clothes.
Right.
He was such a pretty person. I hated working with him, as well as all the other guys. But this is how they do. They work with guys, the big empire of tourism in Cuba. And this guy, he collects the money, he brings the customers, but he's not allowed to do the tours by himself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's sad. That's sad because they're taking advantage of not just the people, but of the workers like you who, people like you who are doing that to make some tips as well. You're in that field so that you can at least make some money, and that's just horrible. So they're making money from all ends.
And here's the thing. So sometimes you will make like friendship with some of the tourists in the it's like 7 days, 10 days sometimes, and they were like, hey, I think we gave you like $80, me, and some other guy gave you like 60, and then this guy, he would give you like $60 for the whole tour for the 20 people that were in the bus.
Wow.
He's such a pretty person, and he was married to a Cuban woman. So he has family in Cuba. He lives in Havana. So we went through all the synagogues in the city, and we learned that most of the Jewish people in Cuba, they are leaving Cuba using the status as a Jewish people. So they do the paperwork and they go. They leave.
Yeah. So we have I don't know if you know Abraham Rivera. He has he's a YouTuber, actually, very nice older gentleman, and he has his own channel as well, which I love him. He's very knowledgeable, and he used to live in Cuba. He was with the Jewish community. He's a Jew. He now lives in Israel, but the reality is that they do have their own community because they have to have their kosher foods and stuff. And I believe the Israeli government made an agreement with the Cuban government where since their foods have to be treated a special way, and they would the Israeli government would give the Cuban government these foods, or give them some sort of subsidy for that community, where the community would be able to get those kosher meals from the Cuban government. And there was an agreement between them, and that's why they stay in that community. It's very interesting, actually. I was under the impression that a lot of them had left, back in the days, and I do believe a lot of them did leave. I was not aware that there was still quite a bit still there in Cuba.
Yeah.
Large community. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
But
interesting.
there is in their status the privilege of becoming Jewish, I guess.
Yeah.
To they live to Israel and then they come to the States. That's what they're doing. So I
Okay.
have people that I know that have done that, because people are fleeing Cuba, like using whatever means they can. So yeah, that's the short experience I have with the Jewish community. Not talking about the Jewish community; they're great people. That's great.
Oh yeah. No, I do know that there. I mean, of course, there's bad, good and bad in all cultures and in all countries, and I mean, even in ours.
Mhm.
There's good and bad everywhere, right? But um, it is what it is.
Yeah,
There's
but so how you say the military companies they use every means to take advantage of people, of their own workers, and how some of these people treat the Cuban people, like this specifically this um, tour. How's the
and
name?
I can only imagine how much they're charging, way above the regular prices for those
$1,500 per customer.
to those. Yeah, it's really, yeah. I can only imagine exactly.
Easily.
So it's crazy. So they're making money from everywhere.
That is true. That is true.
Welcome.
Yeah, it seems that
Hello, Ben. How
they're
are
holding
you?
the Jewish community
Hi guys,
hostage.
how you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me here.
Hey, Osmel,
No,
welcome.
thank you for joining us.
I was listening to you guys talking about the Jewish community in Cuba, and the fact of the matter is that under a communist dictatorship, any dictatorship, but a communist one, it's even worse. Practicing any kind of religion, it's really hard. It's really hard because remember that communism is a religion itself. It's called the red religion. They don't so anything outside their beliefs and outside the men in power, it's a sin for them. So practicing any kind of religion, and I have my own experience as an I was Jehovah's Witness. I think I said it before.
Right.
So my family is are Jehovah's Witness. They Everybody in the family is Jehovah's Witness. Or most of them are, and practicing any religion at all in Cuba, it's really tough because
You're yeah. We can't hear you.
there was a call coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, I was saying this man, this you, that his child, he was bullied at school, and it's because of the little cap that they wear,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So they would take it
That's
up
right.
off his head and step on it and punch him and push him just because he was because he's Jew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and
I had the article right here, Osmel. If you can keep
and the thing is
talking
the
about
thing
it as
is
I
that
show it.
teachers don't do anything to stop that from happening. That's the family, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think I mentioned a friend of mine the other day. He lives in the United States now, and he's saying when he thinks of his childhood, people that really terrorized him was not precisely the police or the military. It was his teachers, because
Yeah.
he was a Jehovah's Witness, and they wouldn't do anything to stop the bullying from happening. They would be part of that bullying, like bringing a member of the police department like every Friday to kind of interrogate a child, an 8-year-old child. So that's Cuba. Don't, people who are listening, don't let yourselves be fooled about Cuba being a paradise. There's nothing more of a lie than saying that Cuba is a paradise. There's no freedom for doing anything on your own in Cuba. You
Right.
can't practice a religion. You can't speak your mind. You can't do anything outside what you are told and ordered to do by the government. or
Exactly.
allowed to do by the government. So
Exactly.
they would allow you to do certain things, but only up to the moment that they want to put a stop to it. So
Exactly.
they are so fake that they're so fake that before 1998, when the Pope visited Cuba, visited Havana, there was a lot of uh, there was a lot of problems with any religion, even
Oh,
with the Catholic Church. And in 1998, I remember Castro saying that they never had any problem with any religion.
yeah.
That so they lied to the world, and the sad thing is that a lot of uh, a lot of agencies and a lot of men with power in the world would allow them to do that, and they have allowed them to do that. So
Yeah.
it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad.
It is. It is
Remember,
that. It's not
dictatorship. They control your lives in every
exactly.
Yeah.
aspect.
And like you said,
There
it's
is
not just the Jewish religion. I mean, it's all religions, and like you said, they say they allow it, and up to a certain extent, they have allowed some of it. But like you said, once it gets to a point where it gets into their way, they will stop at no cost. And we've seen it with some of the religious leaders that have actually started to speak up now. We've seen some of these religious leaders that have started to speak up, and the government has come down on them pretty harshly. Hello, hi, how are you?
Hi, how
Is-
are you?
how
hi,
are
welcome,
you?
Estrella.
Thank you for joining
I
us.
am in Canada.
Oh yes, I know.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yes.
I mean,
I'm sorry, my English is not so well as yours, but I
no,
try my
you are.
best.
Your
Doesn't matter.
English is very good.
Oh,
You have
thank
to
you.
say you have to say like what's the name of the singer? My English is not very good looking. What
No, the problem, I didn't speak English well and I forget my Spanish. That's the reality now.
That happens to a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, consider that I arrived to Canada on 2002 and I didn't speak any word on English.
You're
And
doing fantastic.
I has to go to the school every single day, and I suffer a lot. I don't know why, but I had that kind of face that the people approach me on the street and asking for a direction, and I look as stupid because I know the address, I understand pretty well, but I'm not able to convey my message. And I just say like this, just make something for them to follow me and bring into the place, but I'm not able to speak and I feel so frustrated. The first year to me it was crazy. Now I don't speak English really well, but I'm not afraid anymore. That's the point.
You
okay.
sound like you speak English very well to me. So
Yeah.
I don't
Oh no, you are so kind, Ingrid. You're so kind. Thank you.
you're the
I have something to tell about the issues today because
yes.
I remember pretty clear when I was at the high school in Cuba.
Mhm.
One of my best friend, I do my high school in Trinidad, Santi Spiritus, Cuba, and she was a really good student, and she always wanna be a doctor. She has that, that vocation. She always said, "Oh, I wanna be." I think someone on her family was a doctor,
Mhm.
but she was Catholic. She was raised on the Catholic family, and you have to fill out. I remember on my years when I was on 11 years, in 11th grade, they create Carlos J. Finland group for to become a doctor. And you have to be part of that group in order to get the career at the end of your high school. And I've been approached. I'm not really bad myself, but I don't like to be a doctor. I have a big problem because of that. And guess what? My friend wanna be a doctor, and they don't give you the access to that group because when they asking about the religion view, she say I was Catholic. I believe in God, and because of that, they deny the access. I don't understand. I was, a teenager at that time,
Yeah.
and I have a big discussion, and I say, well, you offered to me, give it to her. She's
Right.
wanna be here and not. And guess what? They try to pull me out because I say no and say,
You
oh,
remember? I'm sorry to interrupt. You remember back in the days in Cuba, for any type of career that you wanted to apply for, anything that you would have to fill out a form, and in the form there were questions like, "Do you practice any religion? What
that's the
religion?"
first question.
If you said yes, what religion do you practice? Do you have family in the United States? What's the relation to this family?
Oh, that's hard.
There
That's
were there
true.
were certain questions that would be key questions for them to say yes or no to your application for any kind of career or any kind of because there were not only careers, but you remember there were like, I don't know how to put that in English, los círculos de pioneros, where you wanted to practice for something,
Mhm.
like for lab or anything. If you applied for that and you practice any religion, or they would put you aside, like you're not good for that, and you could be the smartest. I have a lot of
You have another call.
I don't hear nothing. What's
He
going on?
phone calls. He always gets phone calls. He's a very popular man.
yeah. I'm very popular. Oh shoot, my phone.
Well, I don't have that trouble because I am on my tablet.
Yes.
If I use the phone, that's what happened.
So I will say that there's so many experiences that I remember. Basic mainly women, girls that were very very smart, very clever, very very smart, and they couldn't go on with their status because they were either Catholics or Jehovah's Witness or any other kind of religion. They couldn't just uh, go on with the status because of that, and that's pretty sad. And people, that's something that happened in Cuba, and I believe it's still happening.
Oh,
Because even if they have kind of easy that a little bit now, there are still problems related to that. Like if you're Jehovah's Witness, you don't train for the military. But
right.
if you want to study in Cuba, there is a signature. Oh, not a signature. What am I talking about? There's a subject. There's a subject that's called Preparación Militar Inicial. So it's like military preparation. And if you're
Mhm.
a Jehovah's Witness, you wouldn't take that subject. So you basically they're telling you cannot study even if they allow you to do it these days. You
Right.
know what? So it's if you don't attend that subject, if you don't pass that subject,
Yeah.
you won't finish your status.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys. I'm sure you know Ruhana. Ruhana.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
her family is evangelical. They started having issues because of their religious beliefs. And because she grew up with their family saying, well, this is what we're going to do regardless of what the government says. That's how she started speaking back to the government, standing up, and she grew up with that, and that's how she became basically who she is today. But it all started with basically a religious belief, and
I
it's
think medical student, and she was expelled
that's
from
right, that's right,
because of her political point of views.
that's right, that's right. Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it is what
Well,
it's
I'm Christian. Fortunately, I grew up on the family that is they didn't believe in nothing. They are communists. I
right.
have to say that. And even one of my aunts say, "Well, I believe that something is exists." They never say that. And I have to learning about God from my own. And fortunately, I arrived to Canada. I am on the evangelic congregation here in Toronto. The two pastors, they are Cuban.
Oh, nice.
Actually, we celebrate last Sunday the 15 years anniversary of the church, and the 40 for the two pastors, the Cuban pastor. And the pastor, his name is Eusebio Perez. He was on jail in Cuba because his religion.
Mm.
He was a pastor at a young age, and every Sunday he says something about what happened in Cuba. It was about around 1975,
Right.
and he was put on jail because they say he's a CIA agent.
Mm.
And he always, I know that that testimony because he always give you to the church. And he said the same day I go to jail, I just pray and pray. At one point, they put another guy on the cell,
Mhm.
and he say he feel the urgency to pray, and he start to say in Spanish, God is our Lord, God is our Lord, and they start to say, shutting out. But the guy was with him on the cell. It was G2 agency,
Right.
and he has to get a confession for him that he working for the CIA.
Mm.
But the guy come from a religion family too. And when he start to pray, the guy start to cry. I
Mm.
say, I'm sorry, and confess to him what he doing on the cell. I say, well, I want to tell them that you are just a religion man and you don't have nothing to do with the political.
Right.
And they free them after a few months. But he has to live with the whole family, Cuba in 1979. Fly to Canada, and he always say that even on the plane they start to pray, and he didn't believe. He said, until I arrived to Canada, I don't believe that I was free from that
Yeah.
moment, the really bad moment of my life.
There are many testimonies of people that were you know given by going back to because of their religious beliefs. As a matter of fact, I believe there's a lot of people that had to just they made their lives miserable because of their religious beliefs. That they had no choice but to leave.
And some of them has to deny,
They-
in public, that they believe in God. Even when they go home, they say, "Oh, God, forgive me for what I say." But that's the only way for them to get a career on the. Even the family say you have to deny, and when you come home, you repent. But they have to do that in order to get some university degree. That's the only way. They
yeah.
force the family, to pour the whatever picture you have of Christ, putting on your room and put on your living room Fidel Castro pictures. That's what happened in Cuba.
Yeah, our my husband's cousin, who's now a youth pastor, and the whole family are pastors. Everybody was, it's a very religious family, and so the smaller brother, and the father actually had to leave first because they were being just harassed by the government, and they wouldn't deny their religion. So in order to just they had to leave, and they left behind the rest of the family, and then little by little they were able to get them out. But it that's how and I'm just so afraid of what is happening here in the US today, and people don't see, because it's little by little, this is creeping up to us, and people are not realizing it. Yes,
That's true.
we do see it. It's COVID-19, and they're taking this excuse to take away religion from us, to take away our right to go to church. That is the first thing they took away.
Mm-hmm.
And that we can't allow this to go on. We just can't allow this to go on, because if they do that, then if they take away God, and they've already taken God away from us from school, we're not allowed to, children are not allowed to say, Pledge of Allegiance. We're not allowed, what more? What's next? What's next?
One also, my Canadian friend published something today, and he said compare the rule for a communist. That's not the name exactly, I couldn't remember, but it's on like a constriction to control the mass and the regulation for a COVID. And it's almost exactly. I'm freaking out when I read that. What's going on?
There's a rumor going around that this has all been, part of a big plan. And now that I go back and I'm seeing everything that's happening, I'm not doubting it anymore. Honestly, I'm just not doubting it anymore, because there's just too many coincidences. This is just too much. Unfortunately. Hi, Ernesto. How are you? We haven't heard from you.
Yeah,
You
I know,
haven't
right? I give you guys, I give you ladies.
back. We missed you. How are you?
Hey, I'm trying to keep up with you, ladies, because it's very interesting. Hi, Estrella. It's the first time I see you. Hi, Estrella. Regain, what's up,
How
buddy?
can be? I always in all.
Welcome, Ernesto.
I am
I
the
go to
one.
with.
I'm the new here. I am, you sound like sleepy. Osmel is kind of like resting his eyes. But I enjoy the conversation you ladies has, and you guys are, right in the point. Um, let's talk about Cuba first because I got 2 points to bring it up. The first
Yeah.
one, I shared the same experience that Estrella has. I grew up as a Baptist in Cuba since I was 5 years old. So I was there all my entire life is Christian life, pretty much, and I try to keep it like that. First, God, He brought me to this country. He gave me the opportunity to be in a free line and do what I do. Work back. Get back to aviation business. As going to school that I'm going right now. I'm very proud to say I'm going one of the most prestigious school in aviation and aeronautics and aerospace, which is Embry-Riddle and Daytona Beach. So I'm one of the toughest school on that area, and I had everything that I had in my life.
Before I forget, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you before I forget. Let's talk, because my husband works at Boeing. So
Exactly. And I'm a
yeah,
Gulfstream employee. Boeing and Gulfstream are kind of like similar.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what I was saying is like everything that I had in life, I'm not rich. I don't have plenty of money, but I got what enough. Like God gave me every day to be happy. I feel extremely happy to everything that I had right now. I always ask for more. I always work hard to get more and keep growing as a person, keep growing as maybe a future investor or a future business owner or whatever, because that's what my goal is. But so far, I'm pretty happy what I have because God bless me every single day. In
Amen.
Cuba, I got a
Hallelujah.
story. Yeah, in
Amen.
Cuba, I heard something similar like yesterday. I remember my pastor. It was back in the days. I don't remember exactly the year because I just grew up and I'm from 1988. So back in the days, Christianity and all that religion used to be prohibited, and you cannot even talk about God in public or anywhere around. And I used to remember my pastor told stories about how Christianity, Catholicism, everything, it was persecuted by the government. And it was a one time that it has a G2 agent infiltrated, spying on his inside of the church, and he became a Christian like years later. But he had to confess to him and say, "Hey, when I came here and the first time I see in the back of your church, I was doing this by the government. Right now, I believe that Jesus is my savior. I don't work. I'm no longer working with them anymore. And thanks God for bringing me to this house and change my mind, change my way to see life and stuff like that. So
Like,
I was like, wow, did that really happen? Because I didn't leave it.
a lot of pastors I've talked to have told me, look, I know, I have to open the doors for everyone, because this is God's, this is God's, house, and we have to open
Well,
doors for everyone. And
exactly.
but I know that, as we all know, as Christians, the word of belief comes through the ear. So if they hear the word of God,
Hmm.
eventually they're going to believe. They're going to become Christian. And they're gonna hear God's word. They're going to know that He's there, and so eventually, um, they'll convert, and that's a
Exactly.
great thing, because that
Mm.
that's what we're missing in our country, and that and
Now,
more
back
people.
to the
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
yeah,
that's the point.
back
That's the
to
point of the evangelic. I don't know
Exactly.
if you are
exactly.
evangelic, you know what I'm talking about it. Evangelic
Hmm.
mean um speak the truth. No, it say the in Hebrews is here is the lie or something like that. And
Mhm.
that's the mission, or less for evangelic church, is to get the message to the people. Doesn't
Exactly.
matter if
Exactly.
someone spy on you, God speak to them through us,
Now,
through the
but
pastor, through the person to talk about God.
hmm now back to Israel. Israel, what you were saying is true. This country is based on God's belief. We had to go back in time a little bit, and that's the thing that this country, this nation, forgot, completely forgot. Like what you're saying, it used to be when you pray in class, you play the Rachel religion, and you actually see this country as a country, grew up by Christianity. Pretty much, who came here? Who was actually the first 13 colonies was
Yeah,
founded on
the
the what?
people were prosecuted because of the religions in Europe. This is they
So,
came here to be free.
hmm so they forgot the basis of the beginning of what ruled this land for a long, long time. Now, in the name of freedom, in the name of freedom of religion, we allowed to what actually, in my opinion, that's me personally. In my opinion, what made a country, an identity, they completely forget everything that makes this country an identity. Give it an identity. That's my personal opinion,
I
and that's the
agree.
thing that I don't like to say very much, but I had to actually give that to the communist country like we have in Cuba. They show us to respect our identity no matter what, where we are. And here,
Mhm.
this line, I had to recognize that the United States of America, has lost the identity long time ago. They allowed many changes, and at the end, one of the things that actually, ruled the country mildly is Christianity. Their religion, their belief in God, let God, in God we trust. Because I see a lot of tags in God we trust. Are we trust in God for real? We don't. We just have that nice word, nice phrase, and the tax on Florida tax and bunch of stuff that is just way, way, way in the past. But are we actually willing to, continue doing that? No, we're not. We actually allow influence from the outside, get inside of the country and forgiving every basis, like rule this country and make what the United States does today. All the essential, they are completely forgiven and they don't even care. That's the scary part. They don't even try to recover that. They just like, okay, I give it up. And it's very sad and frustrating to see that identity goes away because they say, oh, we are freedom to change, we're free to renew, and it's like, no, you cannot let your identity go away or take it away from you. You had to fight for it. You had to be, yeah, respect another religion. That's something very important. But your what the religion that was founded in this country, you completely let it go away, and then you started, it be more, no religion at all, and prohibiting those who actually can want to continue doing it to do so, and it's very sad to me. That's like the way I see it. Being in church for a long time, and I still seeing people like let those things pass by. What's up, man? You're so
Hey,
quiet, man.
Jose, we want to hear from you. How are you?
I'm good. You all hear me? You hear me
Yeah.
now?
Yes, I do. We do.
I am so glad to be here. Thank y'all for having me. I think this topic is super important because in the civil rights movement here in America during the 1960s, the churches, all types of denominations were very important in order to get people those rights. And I think in Cuba is not going to be the exception. I think that the church has all types of churches have a role to play, and I'm going to be instrumental. I remember I left Cuba when I was 10, but before I was 10, I always went to church every Sunday with different, with each of my grandmothers. And I like to go with one of my grandmothers more. And it wasn't because of my grandmother, it was because of the priest. He said things very straight and very forward, but it was very, very rare to find that. Here in America, we go to churches and we typically, in some, in many churches, we're used to seeing the pastor or the priest or whatever, give opinions or give their interpretations of the Bible into what the humans are doing, but in Cuba that's very atypical and it rarely happens. And that priest I'm talking about only lasted, I think, in the church around 6 to 8 months. It was the topic of town. He started to get more rumored around town, and even more people typically never went to church started going just because they were curious, because the word kind of got started spreading, and then that priest eventually, they took him out of the country or he left. I'm not exactly, I was a kid, exactly don't know all the details. Ended up, going to a different country, and what they did was they brought a foreign priest from Colombia to our little church in a little small town, and that was just to, in my opinion, to really change the whole dynamic of, what was being said, and just put somebody new who didn't have a feeling for what the town was expressing at the time. So I think that the church is very, how can I put it? There's people from all sides in the church, and there's obviously people from the government that are also attend the church. And since there's not enough public outcry for all the injustice and the repression that the people face, the church really can't unless more people go to the church, they really can't embrace that reality because they feel threatened. I remember my parents' stories is that they would have to get baptized on their pretty much incognito. Like they could people if they find out that your kids got baptized or were part of the church, they didn't, like people were saying here, they were not allowed to get careers in the universities, and they were not allowed to get jobs affiliated with the governments, which is pretty much 98% of the jobs. So that's my take as a young person, saying that there's a few priests now coming out in Cuba and saying the reality of the people and how the government is really suppressing every liberty, including religion, and how people have taken the government as a God figure when the government is just a rule by the people. It's not from God, So I hope that's changing. It's just that it's hard for more public, more people need to join the church in order to change that, and in order for the church to protect them, and for those walls to be a place where they can be protected, and they can call like a base to start a movement and to start a spark in Cuba.
Right. So, I mean, you've heard Jose Benitez, El Patriota, in a lot of our, in interventions that he's been talking about, more people need to go to church, and we need to support the churches, and he's been doing this, right? Now, we want to support the churches, but the churches also need to play their role in this, right? We want the churches to also play their role in supporting the people. Mm-hmm. The churches need to stand up for the people, because the churches need to say, okay, we're going to back the people up. We're here. I mean, the churches have enough power to be able to stand up and say, okay, we have 5 containers at the port that are charity, that the people from all over the world have given to our people, the government needs to give to our churches so that we can give them to the people.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
the
but
people feel a lot of times the people feel that the churches have turned their backs on them. So it's hard for people to say, yeah, I'm going to support the churches when the churches haven't really supported the people.
Iskra, I agree, but it's a two-way street because that priest I'm telling you about only lasted 6 months, and then he disappeared, and the people didn't fight for the church to have a priest like that there. So I think it's a two-way street. When when my parents and my grandparents were forced, um, in order to survive, in order to make it, to not have a cross in their house or to not and have a revolutionary symbol instead. I think that the people need to. I agree
Now,
that the church is definitely doing a disservice to every person that is fighting for freedom right now. But at the same time, we need to educate and let the people know that the only ones that can, in order for the church to do that, they also need to live within the church and they also need to support the church because it is. I mean, at the end, if the people don't support the church can do anything they want, then they're gonna lose whatever they have, and then there's gonna be no church.
I mean, I just sent I sent Riquette a video of Omara Urquiola just a little bit ago. It's in Spanish. I don't know if we're going to be able to translate it or at least put subtitles on it. But she actually at the end says, I grew up Catholic. I need the church to back us up. We need the church's help. We're being, I'm shedding light. I'm shedding blood from, it's just, it's horrible what's happening in our country. And, the Catholic Church has a lot of power worldwide. They can do I understand the small evangelical churches don't, but the Catholic Church have a lot of power worldwide. They can do a lot more than what they're doing. I do believe
I
that.
agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah,
I wanted to
I
share
agree
this.
with you.
Hold on one moment. I wanted to share this story.
Yeah.
Which is a very courageous priest, a Catholic priest. I think I personally do criticize the Pope, the current Pope, a lot because the guy he's a socialist. Okay, from what he says. So, but this priest, it is what it is. This Jorge Luis Perez Soto from a parish in Havana, in a Havana neighborhood. He said some very powerful things, and right now we also need to make sure that he is not forgotten, that he is very public because anything could happen to somebody in the island if they're not public, if they're not internationally known. He said, when a ruler is not willing to resign, get out of the way for the common good, for the good of his people, for the good of his society, he is a tyrant because no ruler is above his people. If a ruler governs badly, he will be responsible for the evil he causes to his people, but the people who keep him in power will be co-responsible. So he was giving a sermon to both the junta, the dictators, and to the actual parishioners and the people, right? Sometimes it is not giving. Sometimes Caesar takes from the people what belongs to the people. That was really a really good sermon, by the way. If you know Spanish, go look it up. For whatever. You remember that little slogan, right? Like, we're ready for whatever, like ride or die, if you want to say it in like American slang or colloquialism. That can only be said to God, because he is the only one who never betrays, because he is the only one who is always faithful, and because he is the only one who really cares about the concrete good of each person. So that's communist indoctrination. That was a slogan, propaganda in Cuba, where they would say, Fidel, we're ride or die for you. Like, that was something that was repeated, and people would chant it like they were in like a homily, right? Like a liturgy in church. They would chant it, So then he made an allusion to that. So not all priests are have sold out, but definitely I do agree that we gotta work harder, and even more. I think a lot of what I'm not hearing anything about Nipio is from the Santeria people in Cuba. There are some groups, and they're not even Santeros. They're more like they're kind of like Abacua, which is like they're like African Masons. If you want to look at it that way, it's a society of men, right? Like a secret society of men, and they have like codes of behavior and things like that, and honor. And there are some guys outside of Cuba that are trying to get their brothers inside of Cuba to do something, to uphold their values and defend, the elderly and the women and the innocent. But in general, like I do want and I do wish that the African religious people or the Afro-religious people would kind of rise up a little bit, especially also because Black Lives Matters is using like Santeria in their like demonstrations. They're like, say her name, say her name. That's like an ancestor worship stuff. Like, that's like Santeria stuff. If people don't realize, like, they do use Santeria in Black Lives Matter. So I'm like, what is going on? My black people, please. You gotta get a hold of this. Get out of the weird government association for Santeros and whatnot. And, uphold your values as well. Like the commandments of like the African religion tell you not to abuse people, tell you not to mislead people, not to lie. So like, what are you doing? Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm agree with Jose view and Iskra because both of you has it right. I mean, I remember even in movies, back in the movies, when you look at the movie, it used to be like, criminals used to refuge inside of the church. So the church has like a little staying ground, like, the refuge for all bad people, good people. And in that case, and now, even though nowadays, you don't see that happen in Cuba, like they are more on the side of the government and less to the side of the people. Like, they are more towards one side and the other one. When they're supposed to be in a neutral zone, say, hey, if you come in the name of God, I'm gonna offer you a hope,
You have to go
but then
back
you
in
have
history.
to face. Yeah, and nowadays you see a lot of pastors and preachers, side on the side of the government when we send help to Cuba and those containers, and nobody step up and say, hey, those food, those medicines are for the people that actually need it, not for you to keep it stolen and then sell it in the stores. So I see that point is very frustrating that the church is another, tool of repression to the Cuban people in general. So they are side by the government instead of being side by the people that are suffering. And they already know. That's the
Right.
sad part. They don't do anything.
Ernesto, sorry to interrupt you, but you have to go back in history. You have to
Yeah.
remember the
Yep.
very, very beginning of the so-called revolution. What Castro and the regime did, they kicked every priest and nun out of Cuba. So bishops, priests, nuns, they were put on a ship and sent out of Cuba. So
Mm.
they closed churches. They did all kind of aggression. They committed all kind of really aggressive
I
acts against.
I understand. I understand, but after the Pope opened it up, okay, why didn't they go back?
Remember, there's a terrorism of state in everybody's mind. It's etched on people's mind, and people are afraid. People are scared. Even religious people. I'm saying, not saying everybody, but most of the people in Cuba, they're afraid. It's right. It's etched on their minds. It's right there. It's right so within, so penetrated.
I know.
That people
Yeah,
are afraid.
I'm glad that Sydney joined us because I know he's got a lot of light to shed into this, and I actually was going to send him a message for him to join us because I know he's got a lot of knowledge on the subject. Hi, Sydney.
Hi everyone. Hi. Sorry I got late. I'm just coming from work, but
Hey, that's
yeah,
okay. How?
it's it's a very interesting topic as usual. And yeah, you know what happens with the voice of the church, whoever church it is, that the voice of the church is the voice of God. So, and the voice of God is the voice of the truth. God said, "I'm the life, the truth, and the way." So, what happened with the churches in Cuba in general is that the church was the only voice that at the beginning was opposing the regime because the church owns that truth from God that shares to the people. And I knew a lot of priests, I knew a lot of nuns, religious people, pastors who were the voice of God among the people. I remember I grew up in Guantanamo, and I literally was born in a church because at that time there were no priests at the church. So my grandmother, by my mom's side, she was taking care of the church,
Oh
and
my
so
goodness.
I was born in the house next to the church, which used to be the house of the priest. I lived there for 2 years, and finally, fortunately, we got a priest from Havana. And I remember all the tales, all the stories they used to tell us about my grandma, all the writings on the wall of the church, phalangist, tyrant, all that stuff, because the church was the only voice opposing. I remember when I left Cuba, I went to Spain for the I didn't came here straight. I went to Spain first, and one of the churches I went there, I knew a nun, a very old nun. She was like 80 something years old, and she was telling me the story with tears in her eyes of how they expelled them from Havana. They parked a truck outside the convent in Havana. They pulled them out of the convent. They got them in the truck, and they sent them to a small airport in Havana. And there was a plane waiting for them to leave Cuba, and they never came back. And because the Castros knew that they will get opposition from the church, and through the time, through the ages, through decades or generations, 6 generations, 61 years, the church has been the first with their ups and downs who will oppose and will give the light of what it was done. I was watching the other day this priest in Havana, and he went viral. He was a priest in Havana. I don't remember the name, but he was preaching about the parable of the talents and what belongs to the Caesar, just give it to the Caesar. And uh, there's still a lot of voices that claim from the church about freedom, about the true life, about the true dignity. Our dignity does not come from the communism. Our dignity does not come from being revolutionary or being a good worker. Our dignity comes to be created as an image of God. And that's what the church has been preaching, and that truth cannot be shut down.
Yeah.
Moment of silence.
That was beautiful, man.
Yeah.
No,
Not much to
I have
say
no
after that.
word to say. I'm still
Actually, you
processing
know
all
what?
that. It
It's
was a lot. It was a lot, but it's good.
it is it is 9:30, ladies and gentlemen,
Gonna wrap it up.
and I think it
Yeah.
is
Wrap
time
it up.
We
to
lost
start wrapping it
Estrella.
up. That was a great note.
I wish you would have stayed
So
in her goodbyes. And we lost Jose. He left and never came. I thought maybe he was gonna come back, and then he never did. Sorry, no battery on my tablet, but I hear now. Okay. Well, Estrella, thank you for joining us. It was a great intervention, and we hope that you join us next Monday, 8 o'clock, every Monday, 8 o'clock. We want to make this an everyday. This is a family, discussion that we want to grow and make sure that people get as much information as possible. I believe that this is a very needed discussion around the world, actually, and in every single language if possible. So I thank you all for joining us tonight. We actually had a guest who just sent me a message that he apologized that it was beyond his control. His electricity was just shut down at the last moment. But we'll reschedule and we'll have that out to you guys very soon. So, but thank you all for joining us, Sydney. As always, I knew you. I mean, you left us all speechless, which is not a which is not an easy thing to do for this group.
My pleasure. My pleasure to share my we're having all.
Yes. Always. Jose, any last words that you'd like to share?
No, please, people, keep up with Somos Mas. We're doing this in like almost every language we can. It's really to let the world know what why we're fighting for the freedom of Cuba and why we want Cuba to have liberties and the freedoms that the rest of the world has. So that's all I got.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Rosemary, any last words? Just start. That's all you want to say? Okay.
Well, in my case, I really enjoy like every Monday. I mean, it was a very interesting topic that you guys brought out this night, and it was very
I
helpful that Sydney talked about.
This was God's will because we had nothing in the agenda. Honestly, we had 2 people in our agenda, and they both canceled last minute. So we kind of went on the fly. We had 3 topics, and everybody started just commenting on this one in particular. So I think this was just God's will that this is what He wanted us to talk about tonight. So, amen.
No, I mean,
that.
Amen for that. And it's something like not everybody shares the same belief. People don't believe in God. People believe in other stuff, and that's something beside politics. That actually unified us and made us, very happy and together. So it's good that you guys brought up that to the table tonight, and I really enjoy it. So my last words, like, let's keep up, praying God for everything, in this world, in this country, in our country, like home in Cuba, and for all those countries in general. Pray for all your enemies as well. That's what I would say.
I agree. This week we've been, I think, and I'm sure that Sydney will agree with me, but it's been a continuous in every last week in every director that we've had. The common theme has been, forgiveness of what the past has done to us, because it's going to be hard, for us to put a country back together if we don't bring ourselves to forgiveness. That is going to be the, one of our biggest, issues, I believe. And to be honest, I know there are many, there's a lot of feelings and emotions, and many people are hurt on both sides. I see it even here in the U.S. in democracy. I see people in Facebook, within our own community, not just forget about the rest of the world, our own community. I see people at each other's throats, because we just can't seem to forgive, and that we need to, until I believe, and until we come to God, until we put Him first, and we start believing through Him for forgiving, then we'll never be able to put our country back together. That's my way of looking at it. And if any of you have ever heard my own testimony of what I went through, I actually have a lot to be hurtful for, and I have a lot that I've gone through, and what my family went through a lot to come to this country and to leave, and we left everything behind, and it was many years ago. But I have forgiven, probably because I did come to Christ, and I did this through Him. But it's the only way I was able to grow. I was able to make myself better. And I believe it's the only way we'll be able to make our country better.
The heal that they calling now is actually not from men and women. It actually comes from God. And when this country turns back to God and put God first, it's when we still want to see the light on the end of the tunnel. Until that happens, we will still we will still looking on the ground, in grass, and keep fighting between each other, tearing us apart. And you're right about that. I have seen a lot of people. That's why I try to stay away a little bit from social media, because the other day I heard that you and Jose were insulted because you guys have different opinion, and I can actually have a different opinion maybe you guys had, but I would never, one thing is have different opinion and arguing about something, but when you cross the line and offend people, that's actually unacceptable.
We can agree to disagree. We live in democracy, and I'm a big defender of democracy. And because I'm a big defender of democracy, then I'm a big defender that we all have a right to our own opinion. And and since we have a right to our own opinion, then I don't have a right to offend you because of what you say. That's just not tolerable. I don't have the right to tell you, to offend you because you have an opinion about something. That's not right. It's just not right. And
these elections, this situation that the United States going through on this, in general, I mean, in the world as well, it has been, completely different than years before. I never thought that we would be going through what we live in the United States right now, elections, and in general, that the country's been that much divide. People hate, because that word, in close word, is hate between one race to another, one group to the other. And until that hate goes away because God take it away from us,
I even look at it at a smaller scale. Forget about the big. I mean, there's millions of people in this country. Okay, but I look at it in a small scale of just the Cubans. Just the Cubans.
We enough.
I mean, if here in democracy we can't get along and we can't respect each other's opinions, how are we going to do this in Cuba when this is multiply this by 10 times? Because believe me, that this is how it's going to be when we're there. So we we have to come to some sort of understanding that we have to learn to respect each other.
But I don't know when
Sí,
all this
pero
happened and how
communists
things
first.
changed.
I want the communists to learn to respect first.
No, but the funny thing is I don't know when that happened because I remember back on
Jose's last.
back on sevens when I came here, I know there were people supporting different sides and have different views, but I never see that, confrontation between each other at the level like they say aggressive words and actually get into the fight sometimes. And I was like, how is that happening in
I'll be
our
honest.
community?
I'll be honest.
Well,
When I used to live in Florida, okay, in Miami, I lived in Miami almost my entire life, and I just couldn't hold a conversation with a regular Cuban person. I just couldn't. And Ricket, right? Because I have my opinions. I've always been a very centered person because of my religious beliefs. Okay, I believe in equality, and so I have a very good heart. I'm a good-hearted person, and so there was just a lot, and they were just bombarding because they're just too right-sided, and I've always been very centered. That doesn't make me a bad person. Doesn't make me a communist. But right away, that's where they put me.
Oh God, when I hear that, I had to
I
leave
have
that.
been called a Claria. I have been called a G. But ¿cómo se llama eso? G2 or G? What is that? Whatever it is.
G2
I
agent,
work.
like
G2
a
agent.
secret agent. Yeah,
I
military
worked for a
police.
communist country. And I left Cuba when I was 9, so I don't know how I worked for the communist.
No, that's funny. I heard Jose the other day on Saturday when Jose was doing his YouTuber channel, and I was like, I actually get into the inside on my break time, but I was like, no, I had to step out because that's unbelievable. How you're gonna call a person a communist just because he had different opinion than yours? And I was like, no, no, no. And the funny part is, I don't know if he said it, but it was our own community. So I was like, how
Exactly.
you gonna call me? It's
That's my point.
It's like,
that is my point. That's why I say we need to come to Jesus. We need to have a come to Jesus conversation.
Okay, I'm agnostic, but I see that I'm seeing a lot of coincidences lately, and I think maybe there might be something to this Jesus guy.
no, but I mean, Sydney can actually back me up on that. But the Bible speaks about these days, and now if you're looking you read the Bible, they say it's gonna come times like the nation's gonna start falling, all those big nations, you're gonna start getting all that kind of like environment we live in right now. So it's kind of scary too, but at the same time, just like I say, pray, and bring us all together. Let God works through this stuff, because there is no other way. I mean, we are humans. So.
Amen.
All right, guys. It
Amen
is
to that.
9:45.
Yes, it is time to say our goodbyes.
You got
Thank
to
you.
plus and minus, Ricky. You got to plus and minus, Ricky. Like plus or minus 15. So you're in range. All right.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye, take care. And Iska, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye,
Hey,
guys.
quick. Wednesday's night.
Bye-bye.
We got Tampa.
Oh, okay. Yes. Tell us, when is your Wednesdays at night?
I'm trying to actually build out you guys here in Tampa and get the experience here. 8 o'clock on Wednesdays, we're gonna try to do. And Jose always is more than welcome because Jose always brings some good thoughts and speech. He's really good. Yeah, he's gonna be our next president of the. So
Of
he
my
talks so
community
well. So
here
you
in
got.
Jacksonville, of my HOA.
Yeah, there you go.
You gotta start
You know,
somewhere, bro.
CDR, you had to start somewhere, like Enrique said. That's true.
Un
But yeah,
CDR, la he hecho, un CDR. Hold on.
But
Oh
you
my
guys are
God.
more than welcome and spread the voice. Like Wednesday, Wednesday at 8 p.m. We got our direct from here from Tampa. We try to do
Nice.
very positive and keep everybody informed and keep everybody checked. So
Got it.
I will see
Awesome,
you
brother.
there, guys.
Awesome. Thank
All
you,
right,
guys.
Yes,
brother.
All
hugs.
right.
Take
Love
care.
you
Bye
guys.
bye.
Love
See
you,
you
audience.
until
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Until next week, all right? Bye bye.
next week.